Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Random Episode. This is the podcast where we watch a random episode of a TV show from a random series that neither of us have watched before. I'm Varun.
And I'm Christy.
And as always, thank you, Lars Jesus, for that amazing intro song. Now, this week, we are talking about the show Martin, Season 2, Episode 8, You've Got a Friend. This one aired October 10th, 1993 on Fox. And then the episode summary from IMDb is, Martin is jealous when Gina goes shopping with a male friend. And that's it. Now, Christy, what did you know about this show before watching it? And what did you know about Martin Lawrence in general?
Ooh, that's a good question. I honestly didn't know that much. I mean, I had heard of this show. I had heard of Martin Lawrence. I don't think I've ever seen any stand-up from him. I don't know. I mean, I guess he was popular in the early 90s. Is that right? Or is he still popular? I don't know.
He's still popular, yeah.
Okay.
In his prime, I would say, is probably the late 90s and the 2000s.
Okay. I mean, I was going to try to use the excuse of like I was young, which I mean, kind of like when when this episode came out, we were very young, so I wouldn't have watched it at the time. But I don't know. I think I just didn't have a lot of exposure. Like I said, had heard of the show, definitely never seen it, and just haven't really had a lot of exposure to Martin Lawrence. But what about you?
Yeah, this show, I remember as a kid, maybe seeing it once or twice, on reruns on TV.
Okay.
So I was somewhat familiar with this show.
Okay.
And Martin Lawrence, again, growing up in the 90s and being a teenager in the 2000s, I loved Martin Lawrence.
Okay,
he was so funny.
Where did you see, like before the age of YouTube, where did you see stand-up?
Well, his stand-up, I don't think I've ever seen his stand-up.
Oh, okay.
But his movies, I was a big fan of the movies. Because this was I think his start was with the Martin show, right?
Okay.
And then I wrote these down, right? The hits that I loved. The movie Life came out in 1999. Him and Eddie Murphy.
That. Oh my gosh.
It was great. Blue Streak, Big Mama's House, Black Knight. But his first big action movie was Bad Boys.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Bad Boys?
I am. All of these titles, I've heard of. I don't think this was my genre. I don't know. I just wasn't into. I was literally only into teen high school rom-com movies at this time of my life. So yeah. So I've never seen any of these.
Oh man, his humor, I loved it.
Okay.
It was great. And Bad Boys came out. That one came out in the 90s. I think mid 90s was.
Okay.
And then so late 90s, 2000s were definitely his prime. And he's still around.
Yeah.
Because not so much, but just recently, early this year, the fourth Bad Boys movie came out.
Oh my gosh, really? They're still going?
Bad Boys, Ride or Die. Him and Will Smith still at it.
And Will Smith. Oh my, I feel so again, this is just not my genre. I don't know. What is it? A comedy? Is it action comedy?
Yeah, it's action buddy comedy.
Okay. Yeah, I just feel like that's not typically, again, I pretty much am a rom-com. In that time period you were talking about, I was watching Clueless and 10 Things I Hate About You, high school movies. That's all I watched. So yeah, so I don't know. This was, I kind of had an idea that this would be a comedy and things like that. I just, haven't had that exposure. So I'm glad you have.
Oh yeah. And I think I saw the third, I've not seen the most recent Bad Boys. I think I saw the third one. And it's just not as good. He's not as funny with his delivery.
Okay.
I mean, he's just an older
he's
guy
old,
now.
Right? How old is he?
He's got to be in his 50s.
50s, right? Because if he was doing this show when we were 5, he's definitely a fair amount older than us. So yeah, at least 50s, maybe 60. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll look him up at some point.
Yeah.
But but good for him for still doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And Big Mama's House had sequels as well.
Okay.
Too. And
okay.
I can't think of anything else big of his kept going. But yeah, no, he in this, he does different characters in this show.
Oh, I was going to ask that question too. Is that from other stuff he's done?
That's I think he started it with Martin.
Oh, okay.
But Big Mama's House.
He's dressed up as the characters.
Yeah, but Big Mama's House he was an undercover cop that went dressed up as a grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Y'all, this is me. I'm just like, everybody listening is like, obviously that's what Big Mama's house is. I'm just so out of this. Like, this was not
You missed out. It was
this
so
was not
good.
my genre at all.
So good.
Okay. But it's funny. It's like all comedy.
It's all comedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe at some point in my life, I'll actually check out these things from 20 plus years ago that I've just missed.
You definitely should.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. So let's get into the episode, shall we? So we start off with a cold open. Let's call it a cold
I guess
open,
it's kind of a cold open.
Yeah. And so this is before the intro style song. And we see Martin doing one of his characters. And I remember this from, again, the few episodes I watched.
Okay.
And this one, he is dressed up as a security guard at a store, like a department store.
Yeah.
His name is Otis.
Okay.
And there's a big line of people to come into the store. And he's saying there's 2 more minutes. But then one young man comes up, says it's his woman's birthday, so he has to move, and he hops the velvet rope.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls Otis old.
Yeah.
And Otis does not like that. And he goes off and sides with, everyone else in this line is old, which is also just funny.
All the olds.
There's one young guy with all these old people, but he quotes my favorite movie of all time, Cool Hand Luke.
Okay.
He says, what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Uh-huh.
Which I was tickled with that.
Okay.
And then talking about how back in the old days, when young people were disrespectful, they would get a quote-unquote whooping ass.
Yeah.
And but then the young man punches Otis.
Yeah.
And then fight.
A full-on brawl happens.
Yes, all the old people against the one young man. And it pretty much is just like physical comedy with them fighting.
Yes.
That's all it is in this opening.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I think I didn't know that this was a cold open. So I was, again, not having ever seen this or any of Martin Lawrence's stuff. I was just very confused.
You must have been so
I was
thrown.
like, is this what the whole show is? I just had and then in my head, I was like, I'm pretty sure the very little context I have for the show, it's not this type of show. I was very confused. It was funny, though. I mean, the physical comedy of it all was very entertaining, and like it helps me realize like, oh, he's just like dressing up his characters. So it was very well done. It was funny. I just at first was very confused.
Yes, for sure. And for me, it was scripted, but definitely the physical comedy was slightly unscripted. The way his glasses were falling off and his costume was coming undone and how the young guy kept coming back in. I laughed a lot during this part.
Yeah, no, it was good. It also just made me wonder, so is there always a cold open? Like, is that how this always starts? Do you know?
I think so.
That there's always some sort of like character funny thing at the beginning.
I think there is. Yeah. And I say that because as I was finishing up my notes, the next episode started.
Oh, okay.
And it was another cold opening with another one of his characters.
Okay.
Which is like a little kid.
Okay. And I also wondered, was it just coincidence that it was a scene at like a mall, or is it connected to the main storyline of the show?
That's a good question.
Because they were kind of similar stories, the cold open and the actual show. So I don't know, maybe that was just coincidence.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was probably tied together. They had this set already of the shoe store. How can we reuse it for its cold opening?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it definitely funny, definitely showed his comedic skills for sure.
Yeah. And gave a little taste of what we're in store for, I think, with the type of comedy.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have our opening credit song.
Yeah, this is the part where I definitely quickly realized he dresses up like characters because it shows some of them. And I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. This is what I'm watching.
Yeah. So we get a taste of some of the more other recurring characters, I think, that he does. He dresses up as, we see an old woman. We see a young woman with long hair. And like I said, when I was writing my notes, the next episode started, and there was he dresses up as a young boy with like snot coming down his nose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sure.
Yeah. So our episode starts in real time now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And we see who is Martin's girlfriend.
Yeah, Gina.
She's dressed up and saying they're going to be late for a play. He says he's coming, but then he is taken with a mystery pain in his side, and it's actually causing him to go blind, and he doesn't know if he can go. But Gina knew this was going to happen and said that he already got Pam to go with her. So Pam's going to be her friend, and quickly Martin is feeling better again.
Yeah, of course. He definitely did not want to go to this play. I
Yeah.
just need to say, Gina's gorgeous. I was obsessed with her outfit. I literally wrote down, like, oh my God, her dress, it's like perfectly form fitted. There's like mesh on top. It's like so 90s, like what I dreamed an adult would wear when I grew up in the 90s. So she's just beautiful. And I don't know. I was like, wow, Martin, he's really, he's getting Gina. Wow. Like that's a big get for him.
Well, I think it was. I mean, I don't know. Is Martin a good-looking guy?
I mean, I guess, but yeah, I mean, is he? And I guess he's supposed to be famous-ish because
And
he's a radio host.
right, yeah, let's do radio
Yeah.
host.
I don't know. I think she's too good looking for him, but
And
I just thought she was beautiful.
but I think that's a very common thing, right? Where the
Yeah.
guy, the comedic main character guy, maybe isn't as good looking
Yeah.
as their partner, like very super
Right.
attractive. And Gina was, yeah, very attractive.
Yeah, she's lovely. And yeah, so she has her friend Pam,
Mhm.
who I'm assuming is also a recurring character because she seems to know and maybe not get along with
Yes.
Martin.
Yeah, which I love because she walked in, didn't say anything to Martin. Martin was upset by that.
Yeah.
It was just so good.
Yeah, and he's just again like I know it's part of the character, but it's really well done and really well played. Where he's just like respect my house and like who are you to come into? I don't know. He just does it in such a funny way that it's entertaining. Like usually I don't enjoy watching a man be rude and outlandish towards a woman in that way, but it was funny. He did a really good job.
And I think that's part of the comedy
It's the
too, right?
comedy,
Is how
yeah.
outlandish he is.
Yes, yeah. It is. It's like it's so ridiculous that you know he's not serious in real life, so it's like
Yeah.
actually funny.
Yeah, it was great. But then we hear that the tickets were actually paid for by their coworker Wallace,
Wallace.
and that perks Martin's ears and asks
Mhm.
who's Wallace and starts grilling. But then Martin says that Pam that he should be all the man she needs, but then also makes a comment that Pam is all the man that Gina needs.
Yeah.
Now, what was your take on that joke?
That he's basically like, I feel like he was kind of insinuating that Pam is like masculine.
Right.
Like and I feel like that kind of like anytime somebody talked about like Pam being attractive or them liking Pam, he definitely made jokes about maybe her not being super feminine. I don't know. I mean, this is the 90s. Like I feel like that is the typical type of joke that happened is like, oh, if a woman in any way is like, powerful or strong or like dominant, then she's too manly. And
Right.
so, I mean, I don't know. It didn't bother me too much just because I know that this is 30 years ago. But no, I wouldn't love that now.
Well, first off, I thought Pam was attractive too.
I did too. I thought she was
was-
lovely.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's obviously clear that their characters just don't get along. There's like the classic friend that they clash with
Yeah.
with the guy. But yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the joke because I thought it was ridiculous because I did think that Pam was attractive and
Yeah.
just.
Yeah.
But then we find out that Wallace is quote unquote sweet and sensitive, nothing like Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And so that cues from Martin. He says, "Oh, so he's a punk." In between the lines is Martin's calling him gay.
That's the, I don't know. I was trying to feel that out as well. Cause then later on in the episode, Martin even questions him on his sexuality, like to his face. So I wasn't sure the extent to which Martin actually was trying to figure out if he was gay or if he was making a joke about that or if, I don't know. It was kind of hard to tell.
Because he makes the very crude stereotypical gesture with Martin sticks his hands out and then flops
Yeah.
his hands down so his
Yeah.
wrists are hanging, so his hands are hanging down.
Yeah.
So at that point I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think at that joke was he's okay because he
He's
thinks that
gay.
he's gay.
Yeah. But of course, they don't outrightly ever like say, because it's the 90s. We can't
It's the
say people are
90s.
gay out
Yeah,
loud,
no.
right? Like that's Will and Grace hasn't premiered yet, right? Like we're not ready for that on TV quite yet. Yeah.
But I mean, we get to it later when he's questioning him. He asks him if he's got a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And not as if there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
like you like, but it's still insinuating that being gay is not
Yeah. It wasn't like acceptable.
acceptable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Our next scene is Martin is with two other guys, which we can only assume are the good friends,
Yeah.
those characters in the show. And one of the characters, Tommy, is saying he's going to be asking for a raise while drinking a wine cooler. Did you notice
Oh my
that?
God, no, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah, wife producer noticed that, and I seeing that combined with the fashion that took me back to the '90s
Yeah.
because those drinks, I forget what brand that was so common
Oh
back
my
then.
gosh. Now that I'm thinking about it, I definitely would have seen those in my refrigerator at home.
Yeah, we definitely had them in our refrigerator at home,
Yes.
but that was great. And that's when
Wow.
we find out because his buddy Tommy's talking about how he's going to ask for a raise. And Martin says, Cole, so the other friend, works at the airport. Martin, this is when we find out that he works on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And they ask him, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not to tie this, well, I'm going to tie this to Friends, but he's like the Chandler Bing where like no one knows what Chandler
Mm.
does. So I'm guessing no one knows what Tommy does.
Yeah. Well, I was going to connect this to our real life because
Oh, yeah.
as we have talked about recently in our friend group, we have a lot of friends who we have no idea what their job is. So, even recently we had a little party with our friends to all give a little quick PowerPoint about what everybody's job is and explain to each other because we literally have been friends for so long and so many of us don't even know what each other's jobs are. So, and I'm not going to lie, we all did a quick PowerPoint and I still don't fully know what some people's jobs are because they're just like that confusing. That's very Chandler Bing too. Of like, yeah, you can explain it to me, but I like still don't get it. So I really connected with this because this is our real life, Arn.
It's very realistic. And just an insight into our lives that we at our parties, we have presentations on what we do for a living.
Yes, it's very important to us that we need to make sure we know what people's actual jobs are.
Yeah.
But I loved this because this is so real life.
It was right on the nose, very timely, given what we just did.
Yes, exactly.
But Martin tells his friends that Gina is not joining them for dinner, and that she is actually at the museum with Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other guys start raising their eyebrows, and I thought it was hilarious because they started singing Bismarcky, "Just a Friend."
Yes.
I love that.
I didn't realize that song was this old.
Yeah,
Like I feel like people are still singing that song now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Hilarious.
because I mean, Bismarcky original,
Oh, okay.
and then for us in the 2000s,
Yeah.
was it Mario? Did the remix
Oh, it's a remix. Okay.
with
Okay.
that song. So that kept it going, and then I think it's still
Okay.
relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for our listeners who don't know what song we're talking about, can you give them a couple bars quickly? Or-
Oh baby, you got what I need, but you say he's just a friend. But you say he's just a friend.
There we go.
There you
Now
go,
everybody will get
everybody.
it. That was amazing.
All right,
I love
if
that. I just put
anybody-
you on the spot for that one too.
Of course, I was ready. And anyone out there who works for a record company wants to give me a deal,
We're ready for it. We've got your next big star right here for
Oh,
the next
yeah.
remix of that same song. But yeah, I love that they're just singing that and being very suspect about this whole Wallace and Gina situation. And Martin, of course, at first, oh, like I trust her. I really trust Gina. And then slowly realizes, no, I don't.
which is the right thing. And that's I think part of the
Yeah.
whole joke is
Yeah.
you should trust your partner. But they make fun of him saying Wallace must be the first man in history to enjoy having a conversation with a woman.
Well, and they talk about, do you have female friends, right? Do you have women
Yeah.
that you just hang out with platonically? And they all realize, nope, they don't. So this Wallace might be a little sus,
Might be a little sus.
as the kids would say these days.
Yeah. But again, was that a sign of the times that still in the 90s it wasn't okay to guys should be hanging out with guys and women should be hanging out with women? Or is this just playing on an old-fashioned trope of that men and women can't be friends and
Well,
hang out independently?
I think this isn't just a sign of the times. I think this is an age-old question. Like, can men and women be just friends? I mean, did you watch When Harry Met Sally? That's from the 80s.
Yes, I've seen
Right.
Harry Met
So
Sally.
like
Yeah, that's the 80s, yeah.
Yeah. So like I feel like that, was definitely a big conversation happening around that time. And again, like even throughout today, right? Like I feel like this is still a conversation of can you really just be friends with somebody of the opposite sex?
But I feel like it's become more socially acceptable now to, I mean, look at us right here.
Well, we were both married to other people.
But again, some people might question that. But I'm just saying that I feel like it's much more socially acceptable nowadays for men and women to hang out socially and
Yeah.
because I feel like in the 90s and before, and maybe in the 2000s too, I don't know, that it
Yeah.
was less. Must be something more going on, as they are
Maybe.
insinuating.
Okay, so like, do you feel like it's more normal than today that men and women can just be friends?
Yes,
But think about like if you're a single guy and like a single woman, like they're just gonna be friends? I don't know.
I think so.
Okay. I just feel like I'm thinking about, well, currently, of course, I've been married for a long time, and like I think all my male friends are also married. So it's hard to like judge in my own life because I just feel like everybody's married that I'm friends with. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think, well, I'm trying to think back. Like, would I have had just male platonic friends who weren't in relationships? I don't know.
I mean, but growing up in our friend group, well, yes, I was always in
But
a
you were always in a relationship.
relationship, but I liked having female friends.
Yeah.
I liked hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And for
Okay.
a lot of female friends, I connected with more than I did with guy friends.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like growing up, I just had crushes on boys, so I never had like a lot of guy friends. So I don't know. All that to say, I don't necessarily think this is just like a sign of the times. I think this is just an age old. Like, I felt like this episode was very relevant to like any time period because this question of like men and women being friends, do you trust them? Do you not? I think this is very relevant throughout all time.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
my soapbox for the day.
that's your soapbox. My soapbox is I think it's a sign of the times that
Yeah.
back then. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk more about it.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be our next poll
Mm,
question.
mm-hmm.
Like it. So Martin then goes to Gina's place and Wallace is there. And
Well, isn't that kind of, I don't know, that is suspect.
that
Like, that Wallace is just at Gina's place?
no, that is definitely suspect, yes.
Like, this is why I'm saying, like, I don't think this is just like, oh, don't trust, like, they're hanging out alone at her place.
Yes, I think hanging out alone at someone's place,
Yeah.
that's a little suspect.
Okay. Okay. So maybe it's just like the nature of the French or like the dynamic.
Right.
It's not necessarily that they're friends, it's how they're being as friends.
Right. Like going out for
Okay.
coffee, going to a play, going to a museum.
Yeah, okay.
I think those are all
Okay.
acceptable.
Okay. But yeah, the whole like him just being in her apartment alone was a little suspect.
And Martin doesn't like that either.
Mm.
And this is where we find out because this is Martin asks him if he is, if he has a if he does he have a
Right.
girlfriend, does he have a boyfriend?
Right.
Which is nothing wrong with that, he says. But we find out that Wallace is straight and single. And while Gina goes to get her checkbook,
I love that. She needs her checkbook for the mall.
I love that too.
So funny.
Martin takes the opportunity to kick Wallace out.
Yeah.
And when Gina comes back, Martin says that he's going to take Gina shoe shopping.
Yes. Which, it did feel to me a little suspect that Wallace wanted to go shoe shopping. I don't know. I just feel like that didn't check out to me. Just like they had like a little inside joke. He was hanging around her apartment. I don't know. To me, I was on the same side as Martin of like, we got to get this guy out of here. This does not seem kosher.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you gotta trust your partner.
Yeah, but I
Trust
don't
Gina.
know. Well, I also, again, this is my first time watching this. I don't know how long they've been together. I don't know how serious their relationship is. So for me, I'm like, what if they just started going out? Like then it maybe isn't as, I don't know, like there's more room for potential fracturing of the relationship. I don't know. I didn't have enough context, but it didn't seem like, I don't know, very above board to me. But so I was on board with Martin going shoe shopping with her instead.
Oh yeah. And do they go shoe shopping?
Oh my God, so funny.
And so they walk into the shoe store and the first shoes that Martin sees are these bright red pumps.
Oh yeah.
But Gina said these are impractical. Like, she can't walk in them. And Martin makes a joke about how she doesn't have to walk with them and with the shoes makes different movements.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think those
Obviously,
movements
is a sex reference. Obviously,
yes.
They're gonna use those pumps for other things.
Yes. But that was really funny.
Yes.
But Martin says he's very happy to be there as she goes looking at shoes. But then we do a quick transition to Martin being very bored
Yes.
and pulling a great joke where he is pranking
Oh
the
my God.
security guard by grabbing items and waving them in front of the sensor, the alarm sensor, so the alarm would go off. And it was so funny.
It was very well played. Like again, the physical comedy of it all was really funny.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when he does it when the old lady walks by, and then the security guard grabs the old lady, and then Martin helps him to kick the old lady
Oh
out. It
my
was
God.
so
I
good.
mean, it was funny, but also I was like, okay, so now you're gonna arrest an old lady? Like you just set somebody up and now she's actually gonna get like frisked.
It was great. It was
Oh my
so
God.
funny.
It was funny, but I also didn't love that. It was like actually resulting in an old woman being like held up and frisked and all of that stuff, but it was okay. But I was, like as you see Martin being so bored and just like not enjoying his time. First of all, they were legitimately, didn't she say they were there for like 4 hours or something?
Yes.
Like that feels excessive to me. As a woman who enjoys shoe shopping, first of all, I don't go to stores anymore. I exclusively shop online. So like my 4 hours is just me scrolling on dsw.com. But like, I don't think I ever would have spent that much time in one store. That's excessive.
I remember in the 90s going shopping with my parents, my family.
Yeah.
And mind you, I was a kid at the mall or whatever department store we went to, and it would feel like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I definitely felt for Martin in this because this definitely took me back to the
Yeah.
90s and going shopping with my family and just being so bored
Yeah.
and feeling like it's taking forever.
Yeah. Well, and then too, it made me think, I was like, oh, if I was just sitting in a store, what would I be doing? Obviously on my phone. So it's just so, again, like that callback to the 90s. Like,
Right.
there's legitimately nothing to do. There's
Nothing.
no phones. There's no TV out. Like there's literally no screens. There's like, obviously the magazines that the other guy wouldn't lend him, but which was
Right.
also hilarious. But like there's nothing to do.
Right.
So I get that being bored because you're just literally sitting in a shoe store for 5 hours.
Absolutely.
I am like fully Team Martin in this episode. Like, I get it. I get his acting out. It's understandable. Like, I fully understand why he's making all the moves he's making.
Yeah, I agree. Because, I mean, it's one thing when you're shoe shopping for yourself, but when you're shoe shopping for someone else,
Yeah.
and you're there 4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
For that part, definitely Team Martin.
Also,
too.
I was like, Gina, are you only getting one pair? Because then she seemed like she was just going back and forth between multiple pairs. And I'm like, just get them both. Is there like, what's the budget here? What's the goal? I don't know. I just feel like she had no, like end goal in sight. That I really feel like if you're setting out to go to a store, you got to know what you're going to get.
Actually, I am going to change my tone here. So
Ooh.
I am also Team Gina because when I go
Okay.
shopping, when I go to the store, I do
Ooh.
take forever to shop. Mind you, I go by myself. I don't take
Interesting.
anyone
Okay.
with me to
Okay.
go shopping, but I take forever. I do at least a couple passes by different items.
Okay.
And then I venture out to pick them up, see the material, and then see which ones I like. I look at the prices,
Okay.
and then I will figure out the select ones I want to go try on.
Okay.
And then in my head, I'm doing the math of the price and is this the
Yeah.
value? This is what I want.
Oh my
Like I can
God.
get like one really expensive item, or I can get three not so nice items that are on sale.
Okay.
No, I was also with Gina. I totally got her
Okay,
mindset.
well, that's why I'm clearly not going shopping with you. And I will say, like, I do put a lot of thought into my purchases, but I do them all online. So, like, nobody has to suffer through that. I can just literally lay in my bed and scroll the internet and just do that all myself. It's great. It's such a great time to be alive, honestly.
is.
Like, being able to just do all of this with your phone, have a screen in front of you at all times. It's really,
Not
really
interact with people.
not have to interact. Like, it's really just the dream
Yeah.
that we're living right now.
But it definitely is the dream of, being stuck in a department store and having to set off alarms to
exactly.
entertain yourself.
Exactly.
Thank God we don't do that anymore. But yeah, so a lot goes on in this scene at the store where it- we do get where a woman asks Martin for help,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that, he works at the store.
Mm-hmm.
And, he asks, why does she think that he works there? And then a security guard comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Guard calls him a G
Yeah.
and that he's not in the hood.
Yeah. It's not great. And the security guard is white.
And the
right?
security guard is an
Obviously.
old white man. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. What was your take on this kind of aspect of the show?
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting because compared to other TV shows or movies, maybe like this scene would be played as like a heavy scene of, man, I can't believe that this person did this to me. We're leaving.
Yeah, like the racism
The
from the security guard
racism from the
towards
security
Martin.
guard, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
correct.
yeah.
But it was interesting how, and how they took the comedy to another level where, because what happens next is Martin makes fun of the security guard for being a security guard, for being a rent-a-cop as he calls him. Makes fun of him for having a flashlight, not a gun,
Yeah.
and makes fun of him for, having a clip-on tie, and he actually pulls the clip-on tie
Yeah,
off
he
him.
full on like grabs the security guard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I liked about it was the fantasizing of what you would do in that situation if you could.
Yeah.
Because we know in the 90s that wouldn't have been permissive.
Right. Well, and today.
Or today too, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like that's not actually what could have happened
No.
between the white security guard and the black man.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we got to see a fantasy image of scene play out of what, I'm sure many people who have experienced this would love to do.
Yeah.
And so I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah. And I mean, it did fit in well with the rest of the comedy. And like, again, like the physical comedy aspect of it all. And like just these different like chaotic things that are happening with Martin at the store. But it was definitely like something that caught my attention a lot, especially now being in 2024 and like what we've seen with these types of dynamics. So it's just like a really interesting to see this type of scene and how it played out, 30 whatever years ago.
On Fox.
On Fox.
On network TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, yeah.
It's super interesting. Yeah.
It's great. Martin goes back to Gina, and she's asking for all kinds of shoes. She still doesn't know what she wants. And then we get him sitting down with the only other man in the store on a couch. And the guy asks what he's in for. Because, as if he's in jail.
Oh my God.
Which, kind of is sometimes like being in jail. But this guy, Martin asks if he can borrow one of the magazines because he has a whole stack of magazines. And I can only imagine, being in the store and seeing some form of entertainment.
Yes,
right
again,
there.
there's no phones. Like, what else are they supposed to do?
Exactly. There's a magazine, something that can pull your attention away.
Yeah.
And this guy won't let him have any magazines.
Well, it did make me wonder, did this guy bring that entire stack of magazines from his own home, or was that the stack of magazines that was already at the store and he's just hoarding them?
Oh, great question.
Because I could get, if he brought that whole stack himself and these are his legitimate, magazines, I could get why he wouldn't share. But, back in the day, and I guess still today in some establishments, they still have magazines, like at doctor's offices, they sometimes still have magazines around. But yeah, like, or is it just he's hoarding all of the ones that are out there ostensibly for everybody? I don't know.
That's a great question. And that would make more sense, obviously, yes, if he brought those magazines, that's why he would.
But I think he's honestly just hoarding.
I think
it's
is.
that. I think it's the hoarding.
I think it's playing along with the whole jail.
Yeah.
Like they're in jail joke,
Yeah.
and he's hoarding resources to himself, which is after their tussle
Oh my gosh.
with the magazines, and the security guard again coming up and telling him he's got calling him a G again, saying it's strike two.
Gosh. Yeah. But I mean, Martin is just so fun. Like he's just going like bananas on everybody. And it's just like so funny.
It's like he's acting out in the way that I think many of us, like in our heads, just want to act out in those situations.
That's actually a great take because it really is like, it's so ridiculous and that this is not actually happening. But yeah, it is just like our innermost fantasies of how we want to act out at a store. Just he's doing it. It's so funny.
Martin is all of us.
We love it.
Yeah, so then Gina says that Wallace will go shoe shopping with them for 5 hours.
Yeah, well, okay.
Which then causes Martin to be like, okay, something's going on. He runs to the payphone, which just happens to be in the store.
Funny.
That I don't believe ever happened.
That
in the
there's
90s.
a pay. Were there
right there in the
payphones
corner
in stores? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You would have to like run out to the little kiosk in the main mall area.
Right.
Yeah, for
exactly.
sure. Yeah.
But he picks up asks to talk to the operator and tells the operator to find the number for a brother named Wallace, and that he's got nothing but time to for her to go through the whole list of
A brother's named Wallace.
Well,
It was
so
so funny.
was
Yes, when he's, I've got nothing but time to call them all. Like, so funny.
So then we finally go to our next scene, and Wallace shows up at Martin's apartment, and Martin tells him to come clean, and because he's on to him, and Wallace admits, and we are fully expecting that he's going to admit to being into Gina, but
Yep.
he admits that he's only hanging out with Gina to get to Pam.
Which I don't know. I don't know if I buy, which I do buy that he's into Pam, but why would you spend 5 hours with just Gina to get to Pam? Like, that just feels like a really excessive, like, attempt to befriend Gina. I don't know. It feels like too much.
But didn't Gina say that Wallace will come to the shoe shop with Gina and Pam for 5 hours?
Yeah, but it seemed like this latest instance, it was just going to be him and Gina. It just feels like a waste of Wallace's time if all he really wants is to get to Pam, you know?
Is it a waste? I mean, as he said, he works for Pam.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's since they're all coworkers and that's the
Yeah.
dynamic that I guess in his mindset it is, get in with Gina, become best buds with Gina.
Yeah.
And then as I'm hanging out more with Gina, I'm going to hang out more with her friend Pam.
I guess. But again, I'm thinking about that aspect of like, can men and women only be friends? And like, if I'm Pam and I see Wallace looking as if he only really is hanging out with Gina, then I'm going to be like, oh, well, I guess he's into my friend who already has a boyfriend, like not into me. I don't know. Like, I, from Pam's lens, might be sketched out with how much Wallace is with Gina. You know what I mean?
But in the opening, the beginning, when Pam says, don't worry about the ticket, Wallace took care of it.
Yeah.
So you can already tell that Pam is getting into Wallace.
Yeah.
So I think it's working for Wallace. What I did not like
know.
is that then this just proves that men and women can't be friends because
Exactly.
Wallace has ulterior motives.
Obviously.
So
This is what I'm saying. It's so clear the whole episode that Wallace had some ulterior motive. And obviously we think it's Gina, but it turns out to be Pam. But like, yes, it literally is proving my thesis of the podcast, which is indeed throughout history, it is very difficult for men and women to just be friends unless, in our case, we're both married to other people and we have been for a very long time and clearly we are friends. But in a lot of circumstances and situations throughout history, this is how it is.
I'm an optimistic. I'm a dreamer. I have a bright hope for the future that, men and women can just be friends.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we should go back and rewatch Harry Met Sally or When Harry Met Sally and really just, let that all sink in.
Definitely. So obviously Martin is overjoyed. He is ecstatic.
He's happy.
He's like, go after Pam, yes, and he encourages Wallace to go after Pam.
Yeah, and now they're like besties.
Yeah,
they're all best friends now.
Everyone's friends now.
Yeah, I hope it works out for Wallace and Pam. I mean, that could be a fun little, double date, little group hang situation.
I hope so too.
Yeah, it could be cute.
Do you think he's gonna come back later?
I don't know.
Right.
That's a good question. I just don't know. I don't know how big of a role Pam plays.
I think Pam plays a pretty big role.
Okay.
But yeah. I'm just going to say this. Since it's being a 90s sitcom, I doubt he's coming back.
He's like a one and done.
Yeah.
All right.
Just for the story.
I think it would be cute.
Anyway, so we then go to Gina and Martin watching TV together at nighttime. And Gina admits that she was trying to teach Martin a lesson. And that's why she had him go shoe shopping with her for so long. Which it was great, too.
I love that.
It was so great. I love Gina.
I do, too. Gina. I really like her.
But she tells Martin, I'm going to have male friends. Mm-hmm. Martin doesn't like that and says that he's going to have female friends then. And they're going to take him lingerie shopping and want him to, comment on what they're buying. Mm-hmm. And Gina says that's fine, but he won't get to see the red pumps. The red pumps. She got him. Love it.
I kind of love their dynamic, actually. I think it's cute.
Yes, because he is out there. He's outrageous. He's crazy. And she just puts him in his place.
Yeah. I'm assuming they're together for a lot of the series.
Yeah, I gotta
I don't
imagine.
actually know any of that, but it does seem like they're pretty good dynamic
Yeah,
and entertaining. Yeah.
it was wonderful. And then our credit scene is Wallace shoe shopping with Pam and Wallace showing Pam the red
Oh
pumps.
no. Wallace, like that. No. That's too far for a friend trying to get in with
Well,
your
maybe they're on a date now. Maybe they're date shoe shopping.
Maybe. But if it's still early on, it feels a little aggressive to be pulling out those red pumps already.
It's a bold move. It's a bold move. That's your attempt.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the episode.
That was the episode.
It was funny. I also appreciate a short sitcom that's a good like 22 minutes, just boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, get it done.
Yes.
Considering most of the time we watch those like really, the hour long intense shows, it was great. I was like 22 minutes, boom, boom, done.
Yeah. It was short and sweet. Loved it.
We love it.
Very funny. I laughed a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But before we get to the big question of did we like it, let's talk about acting quality.
Okay.
So on a scale of A being amazing acting to F being just terrible acting, where would you grade the acting in the show?
Oh, this is a hard one. I feel like I always struggle with sitcoms and comedies because it's hard in my brain to equate like they're just being silly and goofy, and in my head I'm like, well, that's not like serious acting, but it is. I know it is. So I might say like B plus because it really was well done, but I don't know in my brain if it's not like serious, I don't know, like Oscar level acting, I like don't want to put it as an A. I don't know. Maybe that's judgmental of me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm finding as we are grading these that I've become that professor where it's impossible to get an A.
That's like the highest possible standard.
Exactly. But so I'm gonna break the mold and I'm gonna say A minus.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think Martin was hilarious, Gina was great.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny.
Yeah. No, they played everything really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, great. And then on to our rock rating then. So this is our representation of color score based on the number of POCs that were in this show.
Mm-hmm.
So in this episode, 9 out of 10. It was almost all black people.
Yeah.
I think there were only 2 white people, the
trying to
security
think.
guard
Okay,
and the
yeah.
woman who asked Martin for help.
Yeah. Even like just the background of the shoe store, there was very few white people.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
pretty much all people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
That's
to get a 10 out of 10, I would like it'd have to be like a rainbow of ethnicities there. But
yeah.
I mean, this is
That's great.
1993
Yeah.
sitcom with almost all black characters and actors. So
Yeah. It was awesome.
great.
Love that.
All right. So final question: did you like it?
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. I mean, especially that I had no idea what to expect coming into it. I think the comedy is probably different, as I said at the top, like just different than other shows and movies that I've watched before. So it wasn't something that I expected or like was used to. But I do love a comedy. I love a sitcom. So I liked it. I definitely laughed out loud. Actually, unlike some shows that we've watched where we're like, oh, was that supposed to be a comedy? Because I laughed 0 times. No, I actually did laugh out loud a bunch of times. So I thought it was great. What about you?
Yeah, I loved it too. That was great. That was really funny. I enjoyed it. Took me back, and it's very similar to a lot of his other comedy too. So if you do like
Okay.
Martin Lawrence's, I would suggest maybe try Life.
Okay.
That's him and Eddie Murphy
Okay.
in a prison, and they're falsely arrested. And I think this is like around like 1920s or 1930s.
Oh,
So-
period piece.
Yeah, it's great. It's very, very funny.
Okay.
Very similar.
Yeah, no. But yeah, that was great. I love a 90s nostalgia opportunity and just so many of the callbacks to their clothing and the low techness of it all the payphones, all of that. So it was a fun watch.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go and get a wine cooler after this.
Sounds great.
I got my fridge stocked after seeing this episode. But thanks for listening, everyone. Remember to follow us on Spotify or wherever you're listening. And if you like what you hear, please rate us 5 stars. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Random Episode Pod. Finally, and most importantly, come back next week for our next random episode.
Bye.